Hello, everyone. I am Henry Crawford, and welcome to Cafe Muse Online, our opening program for 2023. And we're very excited to get started with yet another series of outstanding poetry readings. And I want to thank everyone in our Cafe Muse community for supporting our programs in 2022. Now, before we get started, let me give a shout out to classical guitarist Michael Davis for that lovely musical interlude we've been listening to. So tonight, I'll be hosting along with Ellen Cole. Our technical guru tonight will be Luther Jett. Our featured poets for this evening are Taylor Johnson and A. Molotkov. I'll be introducing Taylor, and Ellen will be introducing A. Molotkov. We encourage you to buy our featured poets' authors' books tonight and to donate to Cafe Muse to support our literary programs. From time to time, we will be putting into the chat links for buying books and donating to Cafe Muse. All audience members have been muted, and this helps prevent feedback problems for our readers and ensures an uninterrupted programming. Please bear with us if we do encounter a technical glitch. Now, during the reading, you may use the chat to comment. Our program is scheduled for 1 hour. Please join us for our next Cafe Muse reading on Monday, February 6, 2023, when we will be presenting poets Ellen Bass and Babo Kamel. So now it is with great pleasure that I introduce the renowned poet Taylor Johnson. Hailing from Washington, D.C., Taylor Johnson has built a worldwide audience out of sound, language, and music. In his work, I find Taylor's poetic lines pursue emotional and linguistic expression in a wandering way, much as the streets of a city will turn a corner to reveal unannounced destinations. Keeping the reader moving along is the beat of call and response of Washington's homegrown go-go tradition, with underlying rhythms that create a spiritual backbeat that builds in Taylor's poems with music and magic. Taylor Johnson's unique art is fully realized in his first collection, Inheritance. It was the winner of the 2021 Norma Farber First Book Award from the Poetry Society of America. Inheritance was also named one of the best poetry books of 2020 by the New York Times. Taylor Johnson's work appears in Poetry Magazine, the Paris Review, The Baffler, Scalawag, and elsewhere. Taylor Johnson is a Cave Canem Graduate Fellow and a recipient of the 2017 Larry Neal Writers Award from the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, and a 2021 Judith A. Markowitz Award for Emerging Writers from Lambda Literary. Finally, Taylor Johnson is the inaugural 2022 Poet in Residence at the Guggenheim Museum in New York, but of particular relevance for us in the DC area, Taylor Johnson is the Poet Laureate of Tacoma Park, Maryland. So many rivers flow into the work of Taylor Johnson. Words crack sharp like drum hits in an after-hours midnight club. There is a vision that sticks to Taylor's roving subjects that renders them with the clarity of a risk taker or the jazz player improvising into a music that suddenly becomes something we know, though we have never heard it before. This, for me, is part of the inheritance that permeates Taylor Johnson's work. And so I will not hold us up any longer. Let's give a warm Cafe Muse welcome to Taylor Johnson.
Thank you so much, Henry. I feel like I shouldn't even read any poems now. I can just go on about my night and listen to the next poet read. That was really awesome. Thank you so much for having me and being here. I'll read from Inheritance, which came out in 2020. And I'll read some poems that aren't in there as well. And thank you all again for being here. Since I quit that internet service, I'm thinking more about the transitive properties in books, the words, the palimpsest of images accruing in my brain, but more immediately the book in my hand, the cover worn at one end from sweat and gripping it when it comes close as in when I stood up, let one deep exhale when I came to the lines of all fearless happiness from which reaches my life I sing and find it underlined by a beloved stranger. It's like turning the record over, knowing you're hearing what I'm hearing, easing up on the edge of the chair. It's like we're holding hands now at the edge of a white silence from which we are to make a music of our being here, of being moved, wherein our music complements and holds close each other's sound, sound in the wet room of the tree I met you in. Nothing is said about the water or the fearless trees angled toward and against the light, light that did fall on me, made much of me, light that sings through me. So I'm singing. Lincoln Town Car. My grandfather would spell certain words so that the dog couldn't comprehend. OUTFOOD. The dog, that little bear fighter, ran into the road one day, buried in the yard now. And the next dog, he waited in the back room for my grandmother to return, heavy-footed from around the corner. And when she didn't return, he remained there, unreachable as language. Something was off if we left the country. Fluid around the heart, not enough movement, syrup for blood. Leaving meant taking showers and my grandfather fixing my grandmother's hair. All of us clean shirted in the front seat of the Lincoln Town Car. We shared a humid thought pressed as we were against the maroon leather, six-legged in the front seat. Before us, the highway unraveled, sorghum and corn and soy collapsing as the wind fell, listening for light. I listened for muscadine swelling in the ditches on the waterlogged sides of the highway. I listened to the quiet narrow as we entered the city. I loved the language my grandparents spoke, saying nothing, holding both my hands, was the pines that set off sound in them. My grandmother stared out the windshield and into the hills, saying, that man, that man. My grandfather shifted in his seat at the wheel, practicing owning something. I had a feeling that I was the last let into the kingdom of their distance. Something was owed, neither side would spell it out. I counted the fallen pines as the car dipped through the hills in the tide water, lonely as a dog with the whole world inside. I counted the pines and put my voice inside them. Sounded through. From forever in the glade and unendingly so, the animal choir sings my grandfather to forever. Forever is the sound of a seed opening, and so opens his body, my grandfather, given back from attenuated beingness, the gray of which slips off as a seed from my finger slips into belonging. He was just turning a corner, just one foot following beside the other, but a bit behind as I would follow him a bit behind, one thumb in his hammer loop. Our boots ringed in dew. I danced in his shadow and fit my antlers on his head. Our language was twin green and nothing. He sang it from his elk body when he died. My idea of abstraction is white lightning. It's a quote by Jack Whitten. Halfway between Gunyan and Ophelia, imminent splendor. It doesn't matter what I don't know. Clouds creating a blue fissure in the sky, whose grammar, whose sadness hurries forth. I want to speak to order, soybeans, corn, wheat rose browned to torpor. Mercy, protozoan, water shorn, hotly I listen in the pines for my green name. Whoever can stop reasoning, stop. Is it too much to ask to be remade? I who've just begun. Adagio of light, copper-hued diadem hanging on twilight's hem, Virginia's sun, I'm yet released from the sharp language of being. Make me another by morning, lest I stay in this vestibule wholly unmade. I forget about money watching the clouds over 8th and Ingraham. The clouds, a rhubarb colored ship in the sky. To my right, it all grays out. The bats emerging now from the chimneys. The bats listening for the cicadas' echo. Echo is a way to create space, is a metaphor for time. Time for the cop to move along. I think watching the cop watch me from my porch, fuck 12. The robin on the wire vine, the wire eye competing with the bats for cicadas, the robin competing reds with the sky a money for the cicadas, a way to make space, time. The cicadas sounding out the future through repetition. A friend says to spend nothing is to keep flexibility in your hands, to keep your youth. Money, the sound of decay. Money, the repetition of waste. Black existential exegesis. This engine and cog business is wigged out. I want nothing we're owed from the ship gig, thence the land whereon modern sound weaned off our cowrie and cached aged conjure. Land whereon our woe is chic and wanted. Shout out to every nigga cajoled into winging it in a crowd, crowing about being the hewer and the hewer's subject. Oh, my aching chore choir due upon our ochre echo throughout this land, this cadence gag, our ego greeted upon and caged. Grace is our odd crowd which encores green and geodes. Shout out to every nigga dodging age by ignoring human genre fiction gore, ergo we're nowhere, reneging on being owned and renewed, weighing nothing like race. Shout out to every nigga eroding off the edge of something else, gossamering the air. Semiotics. In the dream, I am my father riding through the tide countryside with a banjo playing itself in the passenger seat, strapped in like a baby. The light falling so thick it makes a brass bowl of the valley, the light articulating green to the day. I want to sing it real, what I saw with his eyes, like a river sings to an ocean until the river is a cloud. Sing the song a cloud sings to a mountain. Sing it true and liquid the light fallen. I resonate, I green, I steam ring and undo my face. I let the new light undo my face. I become my father's distance in the temple, the glinting Buddha head casting gold between the floor and his frayed shadow. His fallow voice repeats the mantra, leave, 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 as he passes glass beads between his fingers. My father rocks side to side in prayer. I become that groove. I weep as my father in devotion and anger. We write the same letter to my mother. You are, you did, you. I become my father as speed on a highway, the tape deck playing associations. Father is to fathomed as phantom is to what? The answers draw a sentence across the windshield as crude lines. I'm a banjo driving, trying to read the blueprint my father left. I think it was his voice. I'll just read like two more from here, then I'll read another one. Club 2718, which if you know, it was on Georgia Avenue for a while next to Sankofa. Club 2718, because I don't have the juice or enough gold, anything to enter a room that occasionally exists inside of me is the poorly lit dance floor of Club 2718. Thirst is a way of knowing, not knowing. I was on a gin-fueled hunt for big asses and music I could cry to. A woman almost twice my age asks where I've been, and she shuts the door. Like any American, what haunts me is my addiction to private property, not time or blackness. I want to love no one in particular, the way I say I love my woman when she's in the doorway and mad at me. There were days I believed my grandfather owned my grandmother, kept her overfed and out of the sun in the back room. Occasionally, a room exists inside of me where Johnny Hartman and John Coltrane's One and Only Love plays on repeat. On repeat, too, is a video of my grandfather dancing a limber leg shuffle and singing across the wall to my grandmother. To love like him is to be a student of regret. To abide by regret is to watch grief turn to ecstasy. I wept in the winter when I left my woman. I wept in the heat when she came back. Art movie. Red is a secret in the trees. The train passes through the trees in Alabama. Red earth, red earth. The winter light consumes the field. The light silvers, the light relieves, the light thrown as dust upon the field. I put my ear in. I crack an egg and a saxophone that tells on me, yells at me, comes out. No yoke. The train hollers to stop. The train stopped, still loads new passengers, but the conductor won't let me get off and kiss you. You know that's what I haunted to do. The stage is the window circle between us, the emergency exit door. I keep you in my ear and give you how I'm doing and what I want to eat were I not on a train. You and your white boots. You tell me what else could come out of an egg. Women all the way down, holding waist. The train is a place going by, strictly passing through. I touch a stranger's wrist going back to my seat. The whole train becomes a garment I put on. I touch indiscriminately. I can't stay, I tell the dog waving from your convertible. None of the windows open. I held your gaze until I couldn't. In the previous scene, I took you to this slip until we were shining tunnels for sound. I took your sound for my name, never asked what I called myself. A kind of wildness descends, and across the expanse, the attendant wind drones its one beckoned song. When I'm so tender in the thick of rot, I let all the morning wet spread a plague across this threadbare vessel that holds in what hums, what rushes beneath. Give as the ground gives. Make of me your groveling tongue, your dust, your possessed, possessing, never let up. All right, and I'll read two sections from this poem called Hymn, Hymn, that I'm still writing. Song in secret, song of spite and spirit, and song in the temple, temple of song in perpetual farewell. Sudden, oh, song fallen on me as a passing wind, naming as the wind names, absence, farewell. Oh, shadow song whose hill is green and leaving, right my walk in glory begin. When the trees were leafless, I put my voice, oh tenuous air, among the barren places, among even the nothingness of frost, thinking I knew myself, oh fortifier, oh hidden in the weeds going green, a green concert, hollow green. Oh ship Your going on without me is my resume entire. Thy keel floats on, oh possibility. If I anchor as you, if I set my anchor here, if I can hum through the necessary masterpiece, if I can respond in kind to the loneliness of Wyeth's grapevine, recognizing, turning the corner in the great museum that I am the drifter, O river, with his back turned to his fashioner. How long had I suffered, white-knuckled, anchored to my name, wanting clearly to walk the wide avenues, wearing ornate buttons, wishing to be loved by the god of syntax, had gone mad and gone, tonguing out my name. This nothingness, I'd proved it upon my pulse, realized the self was daily, one moment into the next, as turning the corner, I expect everyone I've known to appear with my other name, a coin in the mouth, a rotten tooth, as if I'm nothing when not regarded as light is, as is the ancient tongue buried below perceivable language, its many tessellations into sound. I want to be called as you call yourself, I say to the unfolding blooms, how they hold perfection and not announce. Do not announce on the wide avenues, the mountain's grandeur. The bloom takes part in the mountain. The mountain is my true lover who before the road humbles me when I set out trying to know, to understand what is below knowing, love the mountain, whose blue face I rise toward, who does not betray, who is mist clothed, whose water I gather as breathing, who has been one tree, who has been a seed, who stills itself in battle, who cannot ask if then thou gavest, whose oath to the bloom is unreachable. O joiner, let me among that private communion. Let me be all as if I had all. Thank you.
Taylor, that was wonderful. I'm so glad that you read for us and I got to hear it. I'm Ellen Cole. I'm one of the Cafe Muse co-hosts, and I'm going to be introducing our next reader, poet and short story writer, A. Molotkov. A. Molotkov is his publication name. Anatoly Molotkov is a multifaceted artist. He writes poetry and fiction and is also a filmmaker, composer, translator, and visual artist. His most recent poetry collection, Future Symptoms, has just been released by the WordWorks. His previous poetry collections include The Catalog of Broken Things, Application of Shadows, and Symptoms for Silence. His memoir, A Broken Russia Inside Me, is forthcoming from Preparatus. Hawaii Reviews, issue 91, features Molotkov's collection of 10 short stories called Interventions in Blood. His work has been published in numerous journals, including the Kenyon Review, the Iowa Review, Cincinnati Review, Tampa Review, Cider Press Review, and elsewhere. He was nominated for a Pushcart Prize and is winner of the E.M. Kopel Short Fiction Award. Anatoly is co-founder of the Inflectionist Poetry Movement and is co-editor of the Inflectionist Review. He's also a musician. He plays the Armenian duduk, a wooden flute-like instrument with a double reed that has a mournful, evocative sound. Anatoly uses film and duduk music in some of his live performances of his poetry. You can find some examples on YouTube, which I did, and they're wonderful. Anatoly was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and grew up under the USSR, then moved to the US in 1990. He began writing in English in 1993. Reviewer Sarah Eliza Johns writes in her review of Future Symptoms that Molotov's writing is both heartbreaking and real, profoundly moving in its exploration of what it is to be human. In another review, Rusty Morrison says, Molotov's phrasing of exacting language burns the mind, scalds the heart. I am profoundly changed by the ways Molotov gives us vision of the tragedy of this moment. Here we experience the essential work of poetry offered to us with grace. Reading Molotov's poems, I find they are rich in images, both familiar and strange. He writes prose poems as well as constrained forms with lots of white space between the words. He allows us to intuit what lies between. The effect is vivid, disturbing, and deeply moving. In the catalog of broken things, he uses these evocative images to describe his aunt's cancer. My aunt, a shadow without a landing. In her chest, small streams fight for the chance to be called river. I list her in my catalog under tumors. She deserves more attention. We all do. We keep telling the moon, but it's dead. It doesn't listen. In his poem Apertures, featured on Poetry Daily, his images bring explosive energy to a poem that explores the end of a relationship. He writes, what light defies this afternoon over the fields and your eyes? Tree rings, crow feet, red rivers ending, inside and outside, vast distances lie, unexplored, a single life. The period after this sentence is a landmine. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm honored to present to you the very talented and exciting poet, A. Molotov.
Any town is hometown. Whoever you are, I will not lie to you in this imagining. Thank you so much, Ellen. That was very kind of you to even read my poem. And thank you to everyone at Cafe Muse, Henry, Karen, Luther, thank you guys. Taylor, I'm so honored to read with you. I know the first thing I'm gonna do after this reading is gonna go online and buy your book. So thank you very much. So inspiring. This is my book, Future Symptoms, that just came out a few months ago. And I think we have a link to our books today. I'm going to start with an excerpt from this longer poem that starts the book. It's called Minus Air. Isn't this a beautiful world with virus and human beings? I can't breathe, but where is breath among the many things constrained? I was not, I was here, thinking, breathing, not breathing. I'm George Floyd, I'm not George Floyd. I'm in this quarantine section and they won't let my mother in, my brother, my sister, my husband in. I will draw my last breath without them. The child draws a face, 2 eyes, and a mask. With each exhale, our lungs reject the air they sought and seek again what's not theirs. I'm George Floyd, I'm not George Floyd. Look how steady the mirror where breath was lying, water frozen. How long can you feed these buzzing machines? I miss you. You replace yourself with an empty space. How does it feel? An extreme subtraction. A statistic? I was worried about the increased risk among minorities. The more die, the less everyone matters. They matter. I'm George Floyd. I'm not George Floyd. Imagine all the dead singing. And this is about a quarter of the poem, and it continues. I encourage folks to read the full poem if you decide to buy the book. So to continue on political themes, as Ellen pointed out, I'm from Russia. As a former Russian, I feel particularly horrified by Putin's war in Ukraine. It's completely intolerable, and I've been losing sleep for the last almost a year since it started. So it's not in the book, but I wanted to read to you this other poem called Minus Future about this. I think it's my duty to speak up about that. And this was published in Tikkun online, so you can look it up. Minus Future. Isn't this a beautiful world with love and damaged bodies? How many dead Russian soldiers equal one Ukrainian civilian in Putin's head? And who made Putin? I didn't stop Putin. I didn't stay behind to prevent Putin. And aren't ruins louder than old buildings? An old woman in Lviv, a child in Mariupol, a father pointing a Stinger missile, his arms strong from the cello, a symphony of death growing in his head. My mother watches Russian TV. She thinks they are here to save us. And if Zelensky is Jewish, where are the Nazis? If not inside Putin? Hitler opined. All propaganda has to be popular and has to accommodate itself to the comprehension of the least intelligent. And if you're popular, because you staged a terrorist attack or two and faked a few elections and insecure about what's next, why not invade a country or two while playing the victim? Why not embrace myth and fake history while the future is voided? What future in a country that offers nothing but oil, gas, and death? My dad says I'm a traitor. My mom just cries in the kitchen. We connect on FaceTime. I'm not sure how they still access it. What face is this? Whose time is this? And if I'm the speaker, it's easy for me to say, my own mother is dead. I left in 1990. In 93, she approved my choice. I didn't stay behind to prevent Putin. If I had, I would have failed. So what's the right answer? Who are we after the truth is removed? Who are we after to remove it? The old woman in Mariupol is no longer there. Her heart just stopped from grief. And all I can do is keep refreshing the news. One of my sisters lives in Belarus, the other in Ukraine. They didn't tell us what's going on. My son has been drafted. We are killing our own. My son died defending Russia from Russia. When new history replaces the old, who will have written it? Who buys that future? Who pays for it? And while we didn't speak, how many were silenced? My daughter was raped by Russian soldiers. While we waited for the war to end, how many were killed. When we spoke, how little changed. This poem is offered with grief for the Ukrainian people and with optimism for their future. I'm inspired by their bravery and by the resolve of President Zelensky. Russia is the black hole that under Putin has no future. Okay, I'm going to move back to the poems from the collection, Future Symptoms, and move on to somewhat more personal poems. And this one is called The Melting Star. That grimace, the way you bite your lower lip, the pain is back. Any day we'll pack a suitcase. I remember the dew by our tent as we camped and the way snow fell in all directions and life was too bright to live. The world described in so many ways fit its shifting meaning. You caught a snowflake in your palm. Look here, a star. Complicit in incompleteness. I'm moved by how the world moves past me, grows its new shapes, its myriad threads. I long to disappear inside myself. My door so worn, only the frame holds it in place. The moment, and then its other side, its underpinnings before and after us. How to imagine completely without being inside the imagined. An empty bed, a narrow path from heart to mouth to a scolding blue sky. Broken glass where skin might be. I'm moved by how the world moves me. How to love more completely, given another chance. This one. Prayer. Rewind my brain, reprogram my life to your own style, reset my dead neurons. I wait, digital like a newborn child, a universe of bits at my fingertips. I was born to this story I didn't write. If you want honesty, take my blood test. An MRI for urgency, write me into a crime story, make me the crime, arrest me microscopically. I want to live in you, breathe your 3D mystery. On chronology. If the bridge explodes, the river grows a new one. Our lost limbs, lost memories return. Time is drawn out of us by the hook of each breath. I love faces of strangers opening to their lives. In the gaps between memories lie opportunities we missed. Days stack on the sharp axis of being. Time draws on us in wrinkles, the way moments align along a string that doesn't exist. The sum of your life. Down the street, at the edge of things you know, lie possibilities you won't explore. Loves unused, friendships unstarted, invitations failed. In the golden light, years passed with ghosts of would-be lives superimposed on would be paths like colored filters. What you are and what you aspire to, what you've done or tried, all the love you long to share with someone who didn't notice that day that could have blossomed, but you were late. What didn't happen is a part of you. The time before the sheets are cold, before the warmth escapes them, moments splattered in yolk that are boiled in our sanctums, reduced to protein, skeletons hanging on the thread of time whose tight curve will not hold us. The snow ascends, and as we watch, the slow crack and hiss of a stuck record player from my past. A shortcut through the woods, a slanted sun through my skin slices life into now and not. The shadow of many years until I write this. As I emerge, a blonde child headed to the beach, ready to disappear. This strings I pull through me as if they were the song, dawn's junkie veins before and after us. We spread our love over this spare land, let it grow inside our bodies. We dissipate along the thread, our names, handles on doors forever nailed shut, our hopes abandoned among the world's small claims. At least there is a thread, a little time to look for it. The time before warmth escapes, before the body is cold. A study in luminosity. So long, so without end, and wouldn't want one. Your palm open to 7 wings, you ask, what if I stay here until a hill grows over me with the river by its side, a selfish view and no memory of me? I say, if you were the river, I'd be the sky, or something more solid to pin my memory to yours. You rest your palm on my head, pushing off as I anchor you. You notice every little crevice, look into faces. Tell me the brightest thing. What can I say? You are the brightest thing. And this was kind of as close as to a love poem I can get. I will conclude with a somewhat longer poem called 10 Doors, which I think also includes the book. And it has an epigraph from Rumi that you've all heard: don't go back to sleep. Windows open, eyes closed, nothing disturbs the dust on the road. Today, the bombs fall elsewhere. A traveler returns to her hometown after years abroad. Is this really her hometown? Whatever else may happen, I want to share this memory. The traveler walks the streets, stares inquisitively. Only you can help her. You live here. No one else is aware of her arrival. Put down your book and welcome her at the door. Your lips are a broken door. Unencumbered by solidity, I flow out the water tap, slide past your fingers, wish away the beauty of your wound, a wound I inflicted before regretting it. You ring, not expecting anyone to open. When the door budges, you are unsurprised to find no one behind it. You explore the multitude of empty rooms. You are the host. You've lived here all your life. Well, this imagining. You will die here one day. Any day is one day. You hear the bell. When the bombing stops, I hope the quiet will remain. You may still exist as a whole, a single being built from compliant atoms. Without a warning, my eyes close. Watch you, hear you, feel you inside this refocusing. Random fire awakes me. Come in quietly, so I believe you're real. The door is open. I am not asleep. Instruments of light left at the door. You hear the bell. You long for some breaking and entering. The door is just a point of view. The way here no longer exists. You and I are alone in this envisioning. You are the host. You stretch the corners of your lips with your index fingers until a matching smile emerges in the mirror. Not every door is locked. I'm mesmerized by your contours. Close the door. I slide past your fingers. The land is out of sight on a frozen map. If only I could be silent here inside this listening. We trace our own steps on a vast green sheet covered with snow. When you touch, I touch. Maybe this is not enough. When do we begin, if not a lifetime back? The bombing continues. We run away from ourselves. This is not my hometown. These are not my thoughts. Please open the door. These are not my bombs, not my memory. Any town is hometown. I am not asleep. Whoever you are, I want to be with you inside this remembering. Thank you.
Thank you, Anatoly. That was fabulous. I'm now going to turn the spotlight over to Karen Allenier from WordWorks, who's going to lead a question and answer session with our two poets.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Cafe Muse 2023. And I think with these two poets, we really need to talk about language. And I wondered if both of you, Taylor and Anatoly, were thinking about your duty, your responsibility to create a new language. I heard Taylor talk about the God of syntax, for example. And so I want to turn it over first to Taylor to see what he has to say about this and to try to give us the elements of what you think your new language might be. And of course, Anatoly has the history of learning first in Russian and then in English. So he has an absolute responsibility towards creating new language.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I think when I was writing that poem, the goddess syntax in my mind was Gertrude Stein. I know we share an affinity for. Yeah, but I think the responsibility to that I see for myself as somebody who works in poems or works with language is to to pull out of it the things that will lead someone to create their own language, if that makes sense. Like I have this experience of reading Robert Duncan in Paris that allowed me to write a poem that appears in the book, the first poem in the book. You know what I mean? It's like language kind of leads you to other language. My hope is that whatever it is that I create, whether it's new to myself or new to someone else, it would move them to create in the way that I've been moved to create, and to write poems. I think it's kind of hard to like stick to the title of poet. You know what I mean? It feels like that's something that you are called, and I can't really call myself that. I'm still in practice as someone who writes poems. But I think the duty to create new language is what the task of poems is about. You know what I mean? I think it's also to catalog, but it is also to see what new like spirit we can pull from words.
Thank you. That's a really interesting set of comments, and certainly Stein wants the reader to engage in a conversation. So I think you really have the essence of that in what you're doing. And Anatoly, what would you like to say about this topic?
Oh, this very much resonates with me. And when we mentioned Stein, of course, as you pointed out, Taylor, she expected some work from the readers. So I'm interested in finding the space in poetry that is a collaboration between the poet and the reader or listener, in which the listener creates co-creates the poem, so to speak, and perhaps plays a great interpretive role than in some of the other work. So that's in terms of the poetic language. And as someone from Russia, of course, I'm fascinated with everything language. I like to tell people that I love English so much more for several reasons. One of them is it just has many more words than any other language. So you always have so many more synonyms. So I love working in English by comparison to Russian. The other thing that comes to me is how Russian has become corrupted by the kind of totalitarian reality that it's faced in the last 100 years or so. And it's almost possibly how Paul Celan felt about German when he was forced to write on it. He of course had lost his family to the Nazis. So I have some of that feeling about Russian, and I'm just so happy to be in this other language creatively.
Well, I think these are a lot of good ideas to think about. And I think that we have a very attentive audience here tonight. And I think that to ask any other question would be to dilute what we just heard. So I want to turn this right back to Ellen. Thank you very much, Ellen and Henry, for hosting tonight. And we shall end, but we'll come back soon.
Thank you, Karen. I thought that was such an interesting question and very apropos. Taylor and Anatoly, I'm going to add my thanks also to you for your very exciting and powerful poetry. Michael, your music as always was lovely, so thank you. And thanks also to Karen Alanier and the WordWorks for sponsoring Cafe Muse, and to Luther for his technical magic. And thank you to my fellow co-hosts, Renee Garrity, Leah Johnson, Henry Crawford, Majda Gama, Claire McGough, and Luther Jett for the work that allows this reading series to happen. And most importantly, thanks to all of you, our wonderful audience, for being here. If you want to watch tonight's program again, it will be up on Cafe Muse's YouTube channel tomorrow, and you can extend your enjoyment by purchasing the poet's books. The link is in the chat. and telling others about the series. I hope you can join us for the next Cafe Muse program on Monday, February 6th at 7:15, featuring two extraordinary poets, Ellen Bass and Baba Kamal. Please make sure you've registered on our Cafe Muse website so that you'll receive the information you need for the event and the Zoom link. Have a wonderful evening and a very happy New Year.